Good afternoon again. So, first thing is protected profiles. The name itself should already point you in the direction of what I am going to say. What is the reason that we went in this direction? Well, what you notice when you start developing things, and this is perhaps a little bit more directed to people who are resellers or integrators and create their own profiles and then create profiles for others, for customers. But there are certainly cases where in a company you would have the same situation. But when you work for a while with pdfToolbox, you'll realize that there is actually a lot of intellectual property that goes into a profile or a process plan. And with intellectual property, I mean there's a lot of your knowledge that you put in there, not just the scripts. I naturally think about scripts because I like JavaScript so very much, which is why this afternoon is my favorite session. But it's not just the scripts, if you think about it. In profiles, it is the way you create checks, the way you configure them so that they find exactly what you're interested in. In process plans, it is the full workflow that you build, the sequence of all the steps. All of that is intellectual property that you put in there. And so you want to protect that very often. Sometimes you want to protect it simply because you want this profile or this process plan only to be able to be used within your company and not outside. Yeah, that is one possible way. But if you create profiles for others, it could be that you develop a range of profiles for, let's say, digital print, and you want to be able to not just sell a client the software they need, which would be pdfToolbox in some form, but also the profiles that you create for that. So how do you do that? And at the moment that is difficult because you can protect a profile, but protecting a profile doesn't really stop someone from seeing how it has been well, you password protect is what we had up to this point, and that doesn't really stop someone from seeing how you have solved the problem in the first place. What it also does not allow you to do is say, I have a profile that won't work on any system except for these 5, for example. And what it also doesn't allow you to do is to say, this is a profile that I have protected, but I want to give you the right to use it for a certain amount of days so that you can test it. And so obviously, because I'm using these examples, these things are exactly what you can do with protected profiles in pdfToolbox 14. Now, you can find the way to protect profiles in the profile window, which I guess makes sense. There is a new menu item that appears if you click on the action button that you have in the top right corner of the profile window. And when you go there, it shows you all kinds of user interface. And now I can show you screen grabs of that, and we can go through that over here, but it would actually be much more interesting if I can show you that in pdfToolbox. So let me see whether we can do that. So this is pdfToolbox 14. It's actually a slightly earlier version than 14, but anyway. And let me see whether I can do that. So like I said, if you go to the profile window and then you go to the action menu at the bottom, there is a menu that says profile protection. You don't have to select the profile that you want to protect at that point. Why not? Well, the feature actually allows you to protect more than one profile at the same time. In the profile window, you can only select one profile at a time. So it doesn't matter what you have selected here. You just go to profile protection, and that will bring up a new window. And now I have to make sure that you see the whole thing on here. That's a bit messy. but at least you can read it then. There. So this window that pops up shows you all of the profiles that you have in the current library, as always. And that also means that I can now find the, I can now find the stuff that I'm interested in, and for this demonstration, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you can see that I can select multiple of my profiles in this window. Whenever I say profile, I also mean process plan. It's difficult to always say the two terms, but of course you can protect not just profiles, but also process plans. So I can select what I'm interested in, and then at the bottom, I have a protect button. And when I click that, it shows me the information that I can add while I protect these profiles. And so at the top, you have general information that goes in there. We will see in a second where that goes, but essentially, this is what will be shown to the user of these profiles if they ask for information about that protected profile. Yeah? And the information is purely for yourself, so you have to determine what you want to do with that, but you can add a version, major and minor version number. You can give it a title and a description. So let's say that this is about digital print. You could say, this is my 2022 digital print pack, and then have a description that explains what the profiles in that pack would do. And you can even add a URL. So that would allow me to, on my website, have a digitalprint.whatever.com and put the URL in here so someone can click that and read more information, or maybe there is documentation on how to use the profiles there, or but the fields are under your control, and you decide which of those you use and what the information is that you want to share. At the bottom, what is important is the allowances that you have for those protected profiles. And as you can see, there are two different things you can set. The first is whether you allow a trial period, and that means that just anyone you give these profiles to will be able to use them for a certain amount of days. And in my setup here, it is 15. I can choose whatever that is. The number of days starts counting not when I protect them, but it starts counting when they are imported in a pdfToolbox installation. Okay. And then the second thing I can do is I can say I'm going to sell this to you. You give me your serial number of pdfToolbox that you have, and I add the serial number or serial numbers of those pdfToolbox installations, and then those profiles will be fully functional on those installations with those particular serial numbers. So I say protect, then I have to come up with a very secure password. You can guess what it is. I would advise you to use a slightly more secure password, but you set the password. Please don't forget the password. That's always nice. And once I then say, okay, my profiles are protected, and you can also see that they now show up not on the left-hand side, but they show up on the right-hand side in my dialog window, so the area of the protected profiles themselves. That's all you have to do.
There is a question. First, a comment, this is awesome.
I know.
And then a question, is this also working for the license server? So
yes.
we heard a yes.
So you can add.
You should either come here or you should take the microphone.
Yes, in the serial number field, you can also add the serial number of the license server, not of the cartridge, but of the license server. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. And it works, as far as I know, it works for desktop, it works for CLI, it works for whatever the serial number is that you enter in there. Yeah? Okay, so what does this mean now? Well, it means that my profiles are now protected. So if I now go back to my profile window, you can see one of those profiles right there. So normally when I have a profile in my profile window, it will have an edit button and I can click on it and then I can start editing whatever is in there. Remark that I now have an info button. Yeah, so the button already changed, and if I click that, it will show me this. So it shows me the information that I entered. It also shows me the URL. So like I said, if you want to provide documentation or you want to just point to your website so that people see who created this and can buy other things from you, then you can do that as well. Inside a company, you could just as well use this to point to a section of your internal documentation that explains, for example, how to work with this pack of protected profiles. And then under that, it will, underneath here, it shows me this profile has been protected. It can be used for 15 days. And then, because I had already done that before, it shows me a slightly different number here. But so it will show you either how many days you have left in your trial period, but might also show me you can use this profile without restrictions because the serial number that I have is included in the protection. So no more chance to edit, and important, no chance to actually see the information in there. For process plans, like I said, a lot can already be derived from just looking at the way the process plan was constructed. This is protected now just as anything else. You can just see the information that is provided during protection. So let's go back to my protection dialog for a second. When I click on one of these protected profiles, and again, I can do this for one profile or for multiple profiles, I can also here see the information that I had, but I can now also unprotect that profile, and in order to do so, I need that very complex password that I use to protect them. Or I can say update, and update gives me a slightly different dialog box, which is longer than I currently have on my screen there. So it gives me a dialog box where I can now choose which parts of the information that I entered during the protection I want to add. And the most common reason to update a protected profile, of course, is to add additional serial numbers because you want to give the profile or sell the profile to someone else. And that means that here I have an area to remove serial numbers that are in there or to add them, which helps you to manage what who the people are that can use this profile. And when you've done that, you click OK, and then it will make those changes in the profile. And like I said, if I want to unprotect, I simply click unprotect, and then I hope while I was testing, I used the same password as I'm using now, and I was. So, and then it disappears and is now again a regular profile that can again be edited. So you can always go back. It's not that this does all kinds of strange things to it. If you unprotect it, you're back where you started and you can do whatever you want. So a very small feature if you want, but I think for the people who are interested in that, this is a really nice addition to the product. There are some people out there who already sell packs of profiles, and there is a good example in France of a reseller who has created a whole pack of profiles around large format print. Up to now, it was a little bit difficult to protect that and make sure that no one runs off with this and gives it to a bunch of other people, essentially. This allows you to do this kind of investment to make more complex profiles and put them in a pack, protect them, and then sell them just as you would sell your services or you would sell the software in the first place.